How's it going? And welcome to The Guitar Effect. My name's Rob. So regular viewers of my channel will know that my channel is a gear reviews channel, and that's all I really do. I never really touch on anything else. But something I've been thinking about recently is with the increased number of people who are playing guitar and the excessive guitar sales during the pandemic, I thought it would be an interesting opportunity to talk about the guitar effects. After all, my channel is called The Guitar Effect. So I want to make a video about kind of delving into what guitar effects are, what the different types of guitar effects are, and how they can be useful when you are predominantly writing music, right, as a guitar player. So either as a singer-songwriter that wants to use guitar in their band, or as a guitar player in a band who's writing parts for a new band. And it's predominantly aimed at beginners. Before I do get into this, I'll ask you to please like and subscribe so you can be kept up to date every time I put out a new video. Okay, so to discuss this and how I'm going to go about it is, in my opinion, there are four predominant groups of effects, right? And those four groups of effects, kind of all the different effects you can get within those categories all kind of do one thing, right? So you can get effects that will add drama to your guitar playing. You can get effects that will add atmosphere to your guitar playing. You can get effects that will add flavour to your guitar playing, and you can get effects that will add texture to your guitar playing. So you're like, what in the name of God is he talking about? Well, I will explain more now. So the first one is drama. And what I mean by that is you can use guitar effects to go from quiet to really loud to have a dynamic impact on the part of a song. Or indeed, you can use guitar effects to go from a really heavy part of a song down to a really quiet part of a song. Those guitar effects fall into the category of distortion. And what distortion is the sound of a tube amp or indeed a solid state amp being driven really, really, really hard and creating distortion because it's being overloaded, right? And there are a number of different pedals that do this. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to throw a pedal board up on screen now, where I will talk to you about the various different types of effects. So this pedal board is an all Caline pedal board, right? Which is an affordable brand from China. I've made a video about this pedal board, which you can see here. But before we get into it, the idea of this pedal board is this is a very, very affordable pedal board, and it's really what you see is what you get in hands-on for beginners. So this would be a really great pedal board to start off with for when you are starting your journey with guitar effects. So as I said, the first category we're talking about is called distortion, and that's what the Leon drive is here on the pedal board. So distortion basically makes your guitar from quiet and polite to loud and aggressive, okay? So the next flavour or the next type of effect adds what I call flavour, and it's kind of similar to distortion, and it's called overdrive. And you can see on the Key West pedal here on the end that overdrive is one of the effects. So what overdrive does is it overloads the front end of your amplifier and again creates distortion, but it's a very different type of distortion to a regular distortion pedal. And what that generally does is it boosts volume, it boosts distortion, but it also generally adds some sort of flavour, like an EQ character, like boosted mids or boosted top end, like treble, or maybe in some cases it scoops the mids out and adds bottom and top end and stuff. So that's what overdrive does. Distortion generally keeps the sound of your guitar and amp the same, but adds a lot of gain to add a very dramatic change to a part. And overdrive kind of takes that idea but dials down the amount of gain in general and adds flavour. So the next type of category is modulation, which is basically modulating your guitar signal in some way, be it with pitch or volume or various other types of different modulation effects you can get. And that's kind of texture. So it adds movement and sort of chewiness and texture depending on the kind of effect you're trying to get. And then the last one is and by the way, the multi-mod on the board is a multi-modulation pedal. So it's a really good way to get into modulation effects. It's a really cheap and affordable way to explore the various different modulation effects. I'll go into what those effects are in the audio demo. And then the last type of effect is adding atmosphere. And that will take a part that it sounds dry and upfront and in your face to sound much more atmospheric and back in the mix and sort of moody sounding, is the way I describe it. And there's two types of effects in that category. There's delay and reverb. Delay is basically echo, so it's putting a note in and repeating that note out. And reverb is like the sound that you get of standing in a church when you shout and you can hear sort of a resonance that's attached to your voice. That's what reverb is. So there are the 4 different types of effects. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to plug in this pedalboard and do an audio demo of what all those effects do, so you can find out how you might be able to use them to help you write songs. Or indeed, another use for this would be if you've no interest in writing songs, but you'd like to be able to identify guitar effects in songs that you want to play by other artists. It's just a really good thing to know what different guitar effects are and what they can be used for. Okay, so there's a bit to get through in this audio demo part of this video because I've 4 pedals to cover off different types of effects, and one of those pedals is even a multi-effect pedal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this super top level and just give you the show how the effectiveness of each effect does that, either adds drama or adds atmosphere or adds texture, right? I'm not going to go into the various parameters of each effect in any great detail. If you like these, if you like this video and you find it helpful as a beginner and you want me to make videos that are specifically about specific effects, like a video about distortion or a video about overdrive or a video about modulation or whatever, I'm happy to do that. Just leave a comment in the comment section below and I'll engage with people and see if those videos are wanted, how useful they might be. So also I'm playing a Fender Strat here. This is just a standard American Strat. There's nothing particularly unusual about it. It does have a humbucker in the bridge that I fitted as an aftermarket pickup. And the reason for that is the single coils have a hollow and a hollow sound with a lot of top and bottom or bass and treble to them. So this is a neck pickup, standard neck pickup sound. This is the middle and neck pickup together. This is again standard Strat sound. You can hear it's kind of quacky, and then on the middle setting it's just this pickup here. Starts to get a bit treblier, and then in the middle and back treblier but again quacky, and then in the back you'll notice it gets much fatter. That's because humbucker pickups are in definition fatter than single coil pickups in general. Okay, so the first effect I'm going to describe is a distortion pedal. Okay, so what does a distortion pedal do? The easiest way to demonstrate this, I think, is to show you what distortion is. So in my opinion, and again, I'm going to caveat this again, this is my opinion about what guitar effects do. They may vary from player to player. But the way I use distortion is to replace the dirty sound on my amp, okay? So every amplifier that has tubes in it, you can overload either the preamp or overload the input section to create what's called distortion. And that sounds like this. So this is a clean amplifier. Okay, I can then switch this to another sound where I overload the amplifier and it sounds like this. We all know that sound. That sound is very indicative of rock music. So that's the sound of a tube amplifier, or a solid state amplifier in some cases, being overloaded or overdriven, right? Or distorted. Now, you can set any amplifier, nearly any amplifier will go into distortion at some point. But instead of having to have those two sounds in an amp, a distortion pedal allows you to be on a clean sound, right? If I switch my amp back to clean, if I hit this distortion pedal, in this case it's the Caline Leon drive. So this is really important. To me, that is not overdrive, okay? Because overdrive and distortion, sort of from the same family, right? But this is a very different thing. This is the sound of your amplifier and guitar, but distorted. Okay? The distortion pedals have generally got 3 or 4 controls. Some have a 3-band EQ as well, but this is a really basic distortion pedal. It has a level control, which controls the volume of the pedal. It has a gain control, the amount of distortion, and it has a tone control. It makes it trebly at the top and bassy at the bassy, trebly. Now, in my opinion, to play rock music, this is the most important pedal. Either you play distorted all the time, and so your amp is permanently set distorted, in which case you don't need a distortion pedal, or you may want to play clean and then switch to distortion. Interestingly, because of the music I grew up on, which was grunge, right? So Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and the Pixies and bands that liked to play clean parts and then for a dramatic effect, which is what I talked about at the beginning, switch to distorted parts. So for example, I could be playing a clean bar. Come into the chorus of the song. Back into the verse. Maybe the bridge. You get the idea. It gives you a dynamic change or adds drama to a part if you can use a distortion pedal to switch between clean and dirty. That's why I say the distortion pedal is a drama pedal, right? It brings weight and dynamic and dramatic change to the sound of a song that you're playing in, because it switches basically from clean to dirty. It switches from quiet to loud, okay? So to me, that's what the purpose of a distortion pedal is to replicate the sound of a driven amplifier. More so the sound of a driven amplifier using the amplifier's own preamplifier to drive the tubes and get distortion from within the amplifier. Whereas an overdrive pedal, which I'm going to demonstrate now, sort of overdrives the input of the guitar amplifier and also generally, in my opinion, adds color with EQ. Okay, so going over to overdrive. Okay, overdrive is like a lighter version of distortion. So here's distortion. And here's overdrive. Notice as well that the EQ of the two of them sounds generally very different. For me, and this is a very contentious point among guitar players, for me an overdrive pedal adds an EQ characteristic. There are overdrive pedals that don't, they're called transparent overdrive pedals. To me, they are light distortion pedals. So like low gain distortion pedals or low distortion pedals, right? To me, an overdrive pedal is something that you combine with a distortion pedal for a lead part, or else it's something that you use to change the character and amount of gain on your clean sound. So, for example, I could be playing in that song. And I could go into the heavy part. Say I wanted to do a solo, then I could kick on the overdrive pedal. And what that's doing is it's adding gain, so it's adding distortion, because it is in fact, in a certain way, a form of distortion pedal. It's actually overloading both. Yeah, it's getting kind of technical, but it's overloading the distortion pedal and giving the distortion pedal more distortion. But it's also adding mid-range. So listen, it's adding like mid-frequency bump to the guitar. So it's making it more distorted, but it's also adding a certain character in terms of shifting the sound of the EQ. This is the Caline Key West. It's a double pedal, right? And it has overdrive and what's called compression. I'll talk about compression at the very end of the video, because I think for a beginner, compression is a very hard effect to really understand what it's doing, because it doesn't really have an audible effect. But back to overdrive, right? So the other thing that overdrive can be used for is to change the sound and the gain of your clean sound. So if I'm just going to tune. Okay, so overdrive using the other way, which is changing the character of your clean sound. Okay, so a famous use of this will be Stevie Ray Vaughan used an Ibanez tube screamer into a Fender amplifier, which is traditionally a very loads of bass, loads of treble and no mid-range. And he used an Ibanez tube screamer which takes away bass, takes away treble and boosts the mid-range. And that's where really a lot of Stevie Ray Vaughan's sound came from. I don't have a tune screamer here, but I can show you how the overdrive pedal, when I turn it on, changes the EQ. So here we go. Bad example. It's used a lot in blues overdrive. So it's not transparent, as in it is changing the EQ of my sound. It's adding more mid-range. It's not really affecting, and it's carving off some of the top end treble. So it works great for kind of bluesy stuff, you know. One thing that I think Overdrive, being a light distortion, is not as good as Distortion at, and that is low distortion non-bluesy parts. So if I wanted to play like a picked riff, oh, sorry, I had to tune there again. So if I wanted to play like a low distortion picked part, to me, it's actually better to turn on your distortion pedal and turn the volume down in your guitar, which limits the amount of sound going into the distortion pedal and thus into your amplifier, and you get a more true kind of control it with your distortion, and it doesn't add that change in EQ. So that's overdrive and distortion. Basically, distortion replaces a dirty sound in your amp, and overdrive is used to boost that sound with more distortion, but also add EQ to change the kind of color of the sound, okay, or the EQ, basically to change where the center point or where the emphasis of the EQ is in the sound, okay. So the next thing I'm going to move into then is time-based effects, so reverb and delay. Okay, so I'm going to start with reverb. Actually, no, I'll start with delay, and the reason for that is I think reverb kind of comes from delay. So delay is really, really simple. It's an echo. So you hit the note, goes into the pedal, and then the pedal reproduces that note as many times as you like. So turning on the delay pedal, here is just a note. Okay, so I hit it once, and it repeats it, okay? And the controls there, the repeats control, it's one repeat. And if I turn it right up, it goes on forever. Then you can do cool things with the delay time and turn it to Radiohead, right? Okay, the delay time is the time between the repeats. So turn it up, it gets slower. Turn it down, it gets faster. That's what's called a slapback delay. So it's like a kind of a country and western kind of predominantly known for it. Or rockabilly kind of thing. And the level is the amount, it's the sound of the delay compared to the sound of your original signal. So right now it's about the same, but if I bring it back here, it's much quieter. And if I bring it up to here, it's actually louder than my original sound. So that's what delay does, okay? Delay is brilliant for either doing rhythmic stuff. So if I bring the level up and I go, or if you bring the level back a little bit, it can be great for adding atmosphere. Also, delay is great on lead stuff. I'm just going to turn the distortion pedal. delay is basically echo. It adds repeats or echoes to the sound you put in. Reverb is like playing in a hall or playing in a church, right? It's also echo, but it's like a reverberation. What reverb actually technically is loads of delay repeats really, really close together. Okay, so it sounds like this. I'll turn the reverb off on my amplifier, so I'm just using the reverb in the pedal. Okay, so if I play with no reverb, that's called a dry sound. And then if I apply some reverb, it adds atmosphere and ambience to the sound. No reverb. It's a dry sound and a wet. You can see why I think reverb and delay are part of the atmosphere family. Okay, so then moving on to modulation. I will also say that the pedal I was using for delay and reverb here is the Caline Ragnarok, and it's a really, really affordable, great starting place if you're getting into atmospheric effects. Multimod, which is the color, okay? Modulation basically varies the, I don't know how, I'm not technical enough to be able to describe this, but basically modulation adds texture more so to your playing, right? So this Caline multimod here is like 6 or 7 modulation pedals in one. It has chorus, flanger, phaser, doubler, vibrato and tremolo, all of which are modulation effects. So starting with chorus, it's basically the sound of the 80s. I won't go into the speed or basically most modulation pedals have a speed knob which controls how fast the modulation happens. Depth knob, which can how pronounced the effect. Okay. And then in this pedal they also have a mix. Okay, but I'm going to leave them all kind of in the middle, or I'll tweak them to taste. And you have something called flanger, which is kind of similar to chorus, but it has this sort of sweep going through it. And it's famous that Andy Summers from Tbilisi uses. Okay. Phaser is similar to flanger, but without the sort of chorusy feel. So what's happening there is the rate is too high, so I'm going to pull the rate way back. So the rate is slow and there is high. And I'm going to pull the depth and the mix back. So it adds this sort of watery, sweepy texture to your sound. Doubling makes it sound like you're playing 2 guitars at once, which is sort of like chorus. It's actually an effect I really like. It really fattens out the sound. Then you have vibrato, which basically raises and lowers the pitch of your sound. Kind of makes the guitar sound out of tune. just find vibrato feels kind of Beatlesy. Then you've tremolo, whereas vibrato modulated, so raised and lowered pitch. Tremolo raises and lowers volume. This is an effect that has to be a bit more pronounced, I think. Okay, so an example of a famous use of tremolo is... Clean more so. Not even hard enough. A Green Day song, Boulevard of Broken Dreams. So there you go, that's modulation, and that's all the effects. I'm just going to touch on compression for one sec. What compression does is when you are playing a clean amplifier, so just off the modulation. If you're playing something like that where you're playing both light and hard, compression lowers the quiet, or higher the quiet bits and lowers the heavy bit, the loud bits. Makes the whole thing feel and sound more consistent. Really great thing to play with if you're playing large clean passages. It's basically what's called overdrive for your clean sound, which is kind of confusing. But I think compression is really not something that's necessary for beginners. It's something you need to be playing for a while longer to understand the benefit of. So yeah, there's my introduction to guitar effects for beginners. So there you go, guitar effects for beginners. I hope that was helpful, and as I mentioned in the audio demo, if anybody particularly likes any one particular type of effect and they want to know more about that effect, let me know in the comments below and I will endeavour to make a specific video about distortion or about overdrive or about modulation and delay, okay? So that's kind of it. I think guitar effects are a massive part of guitar playing, and I think they are a really, really great way to get creative with what you do on guitar and add drama, atmosphere, flavour and texture to the parts you're writing, or indeed, like I said before, to understand what other players are doing when you listen to records. So thanks for watching. Hopefully this video was of benefit to you if you're a beginner, and if you did, if it was a benefit to you, drop a comment below, let me know what you think, and like and subscribe. I may be doing more content of this nature in the future, so just keep your eyes peeled, I guess, and I will see you in another video again soon. Cheers, bye bye.